Hi everyone, Bri here from Bri's Creations. Super excited to show you a new technique I've come up with. I call it basement spaces, and used in conjunction with the cheat BB Move Objects On, it is really powerful to allow you to do several things that you couldn't ordinarily do even with Move Objects On. I'm going to actually get out of a lot that I was in there where I used the technique and pop over to an empty lot to show you what are some things you could do from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do is build a room. Make sure you have bb.moveobjectson toggled in your console. I'm assuming most people interested in this would already know how to toggle that on. So let's say maybe we want to do something with a table. Maybe we want to make a glass floor inside of a structure. Ordinarily you cannot drop things down below ground level, but basement spaces will allow you to position things at any level you want, including partially down into the ground. I'm just lighting up our building a little bit so that we can see our results. And there's our table. If we wanted it to look like a glass floor, it needs to be enlarged. So I'm holding the Shift key along with the right bracket to do that enlargement. Might try messing about with how to position it, and if we want to go lengthwise, then maybe just notch it down a touch there. And then positioning. So I've plopped it there. Now what I can do, I could go down to the basement, turn the grid on, and just work with it down there without anything. But what I think is handier to do, well, let me show you. Yeah, so I've got it down there, and then I can height adjust it with Control 9, and there it is, popping out of our room. But it's a lot higher than what we'd want if we wanted a glass floor, and it will be easier to figure out exactly where to put it if we actually build a couple of basement walls as guidelines. So that's what I'm doing, using that new room tool where you can just kind of connect the dots. They just added that in the last patch. It's pretty cool. So now if we grab our table and go down, we can see our guide walls, and that makes it way easier to know where we need to position our table. And then it's going to be a matter of seeing if it's at the height we want. And in this case, we don't even have to bump it up. It's at the height that we want. One thing I would suggest is to actually build your guide walls like a square away sometimes from the object, especially if you're going to put the object along the wall, because if you want to delete those walls later to save on cost or just to tidy up, it will sometimes delete the objects too. What I'm looking at now is taking one of the decor objects, and let's see if we can using the basement, shift it up and place it up above ground. Not completely above ground though, because maybe we want an effect of where it's only partially out. And so there you can see that we did that, but maybe we want it to be a touch lower so that we don't even see that little bit of edge poking out. So I'm using that wall as my guideline for determining the height, and then I move the object away from the wall to the approximate position I want it. And if I was being real specific, I would probably build another guide wall, basement guide wall, close to where I actually want to put that object. Now let's take a gnome, and let's say we wanted her head to poke through. Like I have a skeleton head that pokes through one of the builds I did to demonstrate this technique. Well, so she's too high if we put her in that basement space. We'd either have to reduce her size, or if we don't want to do that though, we can shift down to the next lower basement level, and then we can elevate her from that second basement level. So if you want to get some really big objects and you still want them not to project too high up, then this is a great technique, is to use both your basement levels. And then I wanted to show you guys something really cool. One of the complaints has always been wanting to put lights on fence posts the way that we could in The Sims 3. And what happens when you do it in The Sims 4 right now, you can go pick your light and you can easily move it onto the fence posts where you want it. And then you can just elevate it up. And that's great, but what happens is whenever you save this to your library and actually place it, and when people download it, boom, that light will pop down onto the ground. So it's no good, and people have not been able to place these fence post lights? Well, now using basement spaces you can. I'm just going to build my basement guide wall right below my fence. What I could do also is build it a square away so that I could delete it later without losing the light, but I don't really care in this case. I'm going to plop down, I'm going to place my light. Sometimes it doesn't show up until you place it. And I'm going to grab it, move it to that space that I want it, and elevate it up. And then this is, always the tricky part. I don't think there's any way to guideline this really as far as how high you want to elevate things. You can see I took it too far up, so I have to redo it again. And it does not maintain position. Once you pick it up, it will revert back to the bottom level again. So this takes some experimentation. But once you've placed one, you can use it as a guide for the others that you would want to place along that fence. So this is kind of a brief look at basement spaces. I think it has all kinds of possibilities for builders. So I hope to see people get in there and do all kinds of crazy, wonderful things with it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on my blog, brycecreations.wordpress.com. Thanks for watching.